Corporate greed. Corporate greed.
Two grocery stores made an average of $1.5 billion while workers' wages stayed the same.
But you will not come together to protest corporate greed.
Corporations are also taking a larger slice for themselves.
Of course, corporations didn't just wake up one day and decide to be greedy.
Canada comparison because I got a new flyer.
Corporate greed and inflation.
Despite record profits the last several quarters.
Alright, is anybody else getting seriously fed up with?
I have not been very kind to Canadian grocery chains. I have a grocery greedflation.
Grocery store chains, we set record profits this year.
In grocery stores has way less to do with liberal taxes.
Canada makes you strong. When I was 18, I couldn't lift 100.
No more gas, no more Irving restaurant, no more anything. Get fucked.
Welcome to Canadian Rant, where we talk about the struggles too many Canadians are living through every single day. Let's get real. We're told inflation is a global issue, that it's just the economy doing its thing. But when billion-dollar grocery chains, oil companies, and banks report record profits while everyday Canadians are choosing between food and rent, that's not inflation. That's exploitation. Families are cutting back on groceries, skipping meals, and canceling basic essentials. Meanwhile, CEOs are giving themselves bonuses big enough to feed an entire community. This isn't about bad luck or global trends. It's about a system that rewards greed and punishes honesty. And the worst part? We're told to just tighten our belts and be patient. But patience doesn't pay bills. It doesn't feed kids. It doesn't fix the fact that the cost of everything keeps going up, except our paychecks. Today we're breaking down how corporate greed is driving prices higher, destroying financial stability, and pushing millions of Canadians to the edge. If you believe Canadians deserve better, hit that subscribe button. Join the community that refuses to stay silent. Because change doesn't start in Parliament. It starts with people like us, speaking the truth.
While Canadians struggle to put food on their table, grocery giants are picking their pockets in order to line their own for Bay Street. In the first 2 quarters of 2022, grocery stores made an average of $1.5 billion while workers' wages stayed the same. That's twice as much as the pre-pandemic profits, and this year, food bank use rose to the highest levels in Canadian history, and yet rich CEOs keep cashing in. It's despicable. Yeah. When will this Liberal government curb the appetite of corporate greed so that Canadians don't have to continue to go home hungry?
Here. Canada makes you strong. When I was 18, I couldn't lift $100 worth of groceries with both hands. Now I can do it with one finger.
I just finished posting the weekly grocery deals and I'm in a bit of a ranty mood, so bear with me. I had my son ask me today, Mom, why do you do your wallet on a diet? And I just spelled it out to him plain and simple. I said, son, it's called price gouging, corporate greed, and inflation. So the reason I share the sales every week is so we can fight inflation, fight corporate greed, and fight price gouging. Something looking back on this conversation I wish I did tell him was, son, a lot of families are really struggling right now to feed their children, but I thought that was a little dark for him, but that's another reason why I share on here.
Alright, is anybody else getting seriously fed up with Loblaws and their sketchy little business tactics that they got going on? So I went into Superstore about a week ago. I bought one of these peanut butter Reese's peanut butter bars, chocolate bars or whatever they are. $2.50 I bought it at a week ago, and I went in there today and they got them on sale, which is awesome, right? That's their sale price right there. $2.50 is their sale price, but but they have a limit of 6 because it goes up to $3 a bar if you buy more than 6, because you're definitely going to want to stock up on this amazing sale that they got going on.
Corporate greed. Corporate greed. Corporate greed. corporate greed. Loblaws, Safeway, Sobeys, Metro, all those fucking companies, it's all corporate greed. It doesn't matter who's sitting in the fucking prime minister's chair. It's corporate greed. Repeat it until you fucking learn the truth. Because even if One Ply Pierre had managed a fucking miracle and ended up being prime minister, thank God he didn't, you would still be paying ridiculous prices at the grocery store because it's fucking corporate greed. Put the blame where it belongs and start protesting, because it's never going to change if you keep blaming the wrong place. God damn.
No, of course, corporations didn't just wake up one day and decide to be greedy. They've always been greedy, but the point we can't overlook is how they've always preyed on people's lack of knowledge to maximize their greed. Because people are right in saying that monetary policy, the Fed printing trillions of dollars, did in fact contribute to inflation. People would also be right if they said a supply chain crisis contributed to inflation. But more than one thing can be true at the same time. I want to show you some data released by the Bureau of Economic Analysis. The past 3 years, from 2020 to 2022, saw a dramatic increase in the contribution of corporate profits as a percentage of unit price, while other costs, such as non-labor costs and compensation of employees, have gone down. What that essentially means is when we buy something, more of that money is going into corporate profits versus into the hands of the employee or to produce the actual good itself. Matt Stoller, an economic policy analyst, did a deep dive and calculated that corporate profits contributed to about 60% of inflation increases. He also added that the other 40% can be explained by government spending and the supply chain crisis. I mean, we have the smoking gun. CEOs praying for inflation because it's an excuse to jack up prices. So yes, greed is fundamental to the business model. But how much value they can extract from that greed? Well, that depends on whether or not we buy into the crap that the media is selling us, but maybe more important, whether or not we buy the crap that they're selling us that we maybe don't actually even really need.
Walmart has announced it will increase prices nationwide despite record profits the last several quarters. So this one is a really hard hit to the economy, especially for the people that are at the income level where Walmart is probably the best price point in order to get groceries and basic household items. So as we all know, the inflation has been really rough the last several years. One of the biggest hits to everyday people is that grocery prices have about tripled in the span of the last 3 or 4 years. And this is not going to help anybody. It kind of makes me wonder, like, at what point do they realize, like, people are just not going to be able to do it, guys? Because it's just like, it's already so hard to make it that you have 30 and 40-year-olds still living with their parents because they cannot afford to buy a house in this economy. And so you've got people working a regular full-time job. You've got people doing gig economy work like Uber, Lyft, Uber Eats. They're doing house sitting, dog sitting. They're working on Fiverr and Upwork just to be able to try to put some money together to be able to pay for things like pay some debt down, pay some bills down. And at some point, it's just going to crack.
Making an updated version of my McDonald's Canada comparison because I got a new flyer. This bottom one here is from late 2020, so 4 years ago. Two can dine, $11.98. Now this year it's $17.78, which is a difference of 48.4%. The single meal deal for just one person went from $6.49 to $8.99, which is a 38.5% increase. The two 10-piece nugget meals went from $16.98 to $19.98, which is the best the best one so far, in that it's only 17.7% increase, and actual inflation during those 4 years was about 17%, so that's actually not that bad. The breakfast version of the two can dine meal went from $7.98 to $11.38, which is two breakfast meals is 42.6% increase. And finally, the single breakfast meal deal went from $4.49 to $5.79, which is 29%. So, yeah, I mean, just sharing this because people find it interesting. I know you're just going to comment, don't eat McDonald's, but yeah, just thought it was interesting to note. The highest change was the two can dine meal, which was a 48% increase in 4 years, which is well over twice the actual inflation rate. Why is the screen moving like that? Okay, sorry.
So the economy is doing great, but it probably still sucks for you as an individual. And the reason's pretty simple to explain. I can do it in 3 charts. Here's why. This is GDP. GDP is effectively the economy. So the economy as a whole is actually doing better. It is getting larger. If you think of it as a pie, the pie is getting bigger. This is corporate profits as a percentage of GDP. So as you can see, effectively what's happening is that as the pie is getting larger, corporations are also taking a larger slice for themselves. So they're extracting more value from the economy as it grows and giving that value to shareholders. And this is wages as a percentage of GDP. So as corporations are extracting more and more value from the economy in the form of profits, you are receiving less and less value from the economy in the form of wages. So corporations are effectively extracting that value by either charging you more, paying you less, or both. So at the end of the day, it's that simple. It's not about regulations. It's not about taxes. And inflation is in fact caused by greed. At the end of the day, it is all about extracting as much value as they possibly can from the economy for themselves to consolidate their wealth.
I saw this and it felt a little too relatable, but I wanted to put it in a Canadian context just to bring it home. Grocery store chains, we set record profits this year. Check. Also check. And it's important to keep in mind that although grocer profits and profit margins are on the increase, the cost paid to farmers for the actual goods has stayed flat for years. Energy companies, we just posted our best quarter on record. Check. Now, this is in 2022, but since the onset of the pandemic, the price of energy has outpaced the consumer price index by a large margin. So who is to blame for inflation? Well, according to the news, it's peasants wanting wages, probably. That is true according to the Bank of Canada. The Bank of Canada is taking the position that it needs to raise interest rates to cool the pent-up demand that was built up over the pandemic, and it will encourage people to pay down debt rather than spend more money. Now, according to StatsCan, the top 20% of Canadians own 68% of the wealth. This is according to their last appraisal. And the bottom 40%, the bottom 2 quintiles, hold just 3% of the wealth. Most wealth is held by relatively few households in Canada. Household savings rate remains resilient as household deposits and mutual fund shares finish the year strong. In other words, it's a great time to be an investor or a shareholder in Canada. Yet, if you listen to conservative politicians, and I mean all of them, they will blame tax and spend liberals and specifically reference the carbon tax as being the primary driver of inflation in Canada. Let's just take food prices, for example. Here's the carbon tax going up. Here's food inflation going down, yet the consumer price index stubbornly going up. So amidst corporate profit margins that are far above the average of the last 10 years, record profits coming in, corporations engaging in share buybacks and payouts in dividends to shareholders, rising inequality in Canada. Why is it that all I hear people complaining about online when they talk about cost of living is that they don't get enough of a carbon fee rebate to cover the costs that they pay out in carbon tax? I feel it's important, if I want anybody to understand anything from my talking head, it's that you don't get any rebate from corporate profits. Why aren't you complaining about that? Also, don't vote Conservative.
If you've followed me for any amount of time, you'll know that I have not been very kind to Canadian grocery chains. I have a grocery Greedflation playlist. I think it's awful that we're given the illusion of choice, whereas all grocery stores are owned by the same 3 huge conglomerates, and that is Empire, Loblaws, and Metro. But lately, you know, I've kind of gone easy on them because we obviously have bigger issues at the moment. Yeah, they suck, but at least they're Canadian and they're not threatening our sovereignty. Silly me, CBC is now reporting that big grocers are promoting imported foods with Canadian branding. One of the examples in the article is from a Sobeys store where the sign showed that the broccoli was a product of Canada, but wording on the tag says produce of USA. So, you know, they're lying. Canadian Food Inspection Agency, CFIA, says that country of origin mislabeling is an ongoing problem and it's against the rules. In-store food signage must be accurate and not misleading. Between 2024 and mid-July, it has received 97 complaints related to country of origin claims. The CBC went to grocery stores operated by those three major conglomerates. They call it Sobeys, but it's actually Empire, and it also owns like Farm Boy and Longo's and a bunch of others. So they visited grocery stores by Sobeys, Loblaws, and Metro. Every single store they visited had one or more country of origin shelf signs in the produce section saying that the product was a product of Canada or Mexico, but the product sticker or packaging said it was a product of the USA. And they are saying it's not just produce that they're doing this for. So they are trying to claim that other American goods are also made in Canada. You can see another example with blueberries where it says on the big label that it's a product of Canada, but if you actually look at the blueberries themselves, it says a product of the USA. So there can be some confusion around made in Canada or being a product of Canada. And the CFIA says that a product of Canada refers to food that is entirely or almost entirely created in the country. And to qualify as made in Canada, the last significant transformation of a food product must occur in the country. So the majority of the product could be, say, grown in the States, but then it's like processed or maybe even packaged up in Canada. So Canada has a part of the product, but it's not actually originating from Canada. As much as CFIA says that this is not allowed and it's not okay and they've received complaints, it doesn't really seem like there's anything stopping the organizations from doing these shady practices. So we need to be the ones to make a stink about this and to now insert a video showing where you can go and file a complaint if you find this in your grocery store. I'm just going to do a Google search and you can see where on the webpage you go to make the complaint. So maybe we can, if a bunch of us do this and this gets spread and you share this, then we can actually maybe start seeing some transparency. And I'm very disappointed to see this news because I was, you know, wanting to think the best of these Canadian companies because I have been pretty hard on them. And turns out it was for a good reason. And even though they are positioned well because they're Canadian and people want to support Canadian, they're being shady to make profit. And it sucks. So let me know what you think and share this.
Okay, I have a question for all the people who came together to protest the carbon tax for April 1st. Okay, my question. Why is it that you can come together to protest the carbon tax, but you will not come together to protest corporate greed? Now, gas went up. Last week, it went up, 9 cents? Last week, it wasn't the carbon tax. It was the gas company. They needed to make some more profits, you see. They're also coming into the busy season where people need to drive, so they up the prices because you see that makes them more money. The carbon tax is a minuscule amount of what the gas companies are charging. So why is it that you are not coming together to protest corporate greed? Grocery stores, you know that those prices aren't high because of carbon tax, because the prices in the United States are almost the same as these ones. There is some things that are quite a bit cheaper, but the majority of the stuff in the United States is in around the same amount, and they don't have a carbon tax. So why is it that you will protest the carbon tax, but you will not protest corporate greed? What is it that stops you from protesting corporate greed? What is it? Do you support the companies that are making billions in profit, but you don't support a tax that is hopefully going to save the planet for generations yet to come, or make it a little better, if nothing else? You don't support that, but you support corporate greed, because that's what it looks like. Your support is in the wrong place. Support your planet. Don't support the wallets of multi-billionaires. Just saying.
Greedflation isn't just a number on a graph. It's your grocery bill. It's your heating bill. It's the empty space in your fridge at the end of the week. It's that sinking feeling when you realize you worked harder this month and still came up short. This isn't just about economics. It's about fairness, about dignity. Canadians are some of the hardest working people on earth, yet we're being squeezed dry by corporations that treat basic needs like profit opportunities. Think about it. If prices keep rising, but wages don't, where does that leave us? It leaves us with a shrinking middle class, record debt, and a growing population of people who can't afford the country they helped build. We've seen this before. Every time profits come first, people suffer. But what makes this different today is how normalized it's become. News outlets talk about inflation like it's the weather, something we can't control. But we can control it. We can demand accountability, transparency, and real consequences for corporate greed. We need leaders who care about the people, not just the profits. We need a system that values affordability over shareholder dividends. Because no CEO deserves $1 million bonus while families line up at food banks. So, to every Canadian watching, remember this. The struggle you're facing isn't your fault. It's not because you didn't budget better or work hard enough. It's because the system is rigged to benefit the top and ignore the rest. The only way this changes is if we keep talking, keep sharing, and keep holding them accountable. So don't let this conversation die here. Share this video, drop a comment about your experience, and tell your story. And if you're new here, subscribe to Canadian Rant, because this isn't just a channel. It's a voice for every Canadian who's tired of struggling in silence. We deserve better, and together, we're going to make sure we're heard.